I will need to delete them soon after so that I have space for other classes that I teach and also to be able to record our next class. All right, so just remember that. Cool. Rosemin, all is well?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good stuff. Awesome. Now, before we get into anything, just a general check. Do you guys have any questions about anything English language related that you would like us to answer for you before we get into today's lesson? It could be about the lessons you did this week. It could be about anything that you've been studying or reviewing. Do you have any such questions? I'm going to assume that your silence means, nah, I'm all good. My English is perfect. Is that right? Okay.
Not right.
No, my
Not right,
English
but you have no
poor.
questions yet. Okay. Now you guys are doing okay. So let's get into it then for this week. This week's unit. Where is it? What have I done with all my stuff? So week 11, crime and the law for this week's unit. And you would have dealt with topics such as the cause of crime. And so you'd have examined why some people commit crimes, what would have led them to a life of crime or even a one-time criminal activity. So would have examined what are the social, psychological, economical, and other all reasons why someone may choose to commit a crime. We would have also looked at the types of crime and examined different categories that crime can fall under and talk about how they differ, whether we're talking about blue collar, white collar, or violent crime, petty crime, things like those, and examining how they differ and also what we think about them in terms of their seriousness and what the punishment should be for any of them. And do we think one is worse than the other? Financial crimes, for example, are they better or worse than a violent crime, for example? And of course, there's big public debate on that, right? Some people think that someone stealing all your money from your bank account is just as bad as someone shooting you with a gun, right? It's almost as if they have taken your life if they've taken all your money. Now, do I feel the same? Not really. But do I think they should be just as harshly punished? You damn right. So that would have been another topic you would have spoken about. You would have also looked at gun control. Gun control is a big topic, especially in Western countries and mostly in the United States, because they don't seem to have any control over their guns, to be honest. And so the discussion and the reading and the videos that you would have watched in that lesson would be talking about, whether or not gun laws are too loose or if they're strict enough and what should be the requirements for holding a gun. And for me, the real question is whether or not we should have guns in the first place. Personally, I think no one should have a gun, but yeah, people defend why they need to. I would rather see a world with absolutely zero guns, but that's me. In lesson 4, we would have looked at prison reform, and you would have discussed whether or not being, incarceration actually rehabilitate a person who had committed a crime, or if it actually makes them a worse criminal in the end. What are the positives? What are there any advantages to being locked up? Or is it really just doom and gloom? Also, what are the conditions under which people are imprisoned, and can they be better? You would have looked at a prison in Norway, I believe it is, and how their style of imprisonment differs from many other countries, and how that actually impacts the prisoners and those who would have, been in that system for any length of time. So you'd have examined that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then finally, you'd have talked about weird laws. And it was, I think, more of a fun lesson on, some really weird laws that are still on the books in some countries. Not necessarily enforced, but kind of ridiculous. But nice to know and nice to talk about. All right, so that's a quick rundown of what you would have dealt with this week. Do you have any questions about any of it?
I want to know what's that means about the words blue collar and white collar.
Blue collar and white collar. Okay.
Yes.
Brendan, do you have those in your book vocabulary review? If you do, I'll just leave it until you get there. No? Okay.
No.
All right. So let me get dictionaries for these. Okay. So they are both different types of crime, right? And blue collar crime is a term that we use mostly when the criminal act is more likely to be committed by citizens of a lower social class in society. For example, those who would, do an armed robbery or something like that, right? Or a malicious destruction of property, things like those. So that would be a blue collar crime. Think of theft, burglary, selling or distributing drugs or having drugs in your possession, things like that. So blue collar is a term that is used to refer to people who are not in the middle or upper class of society, right? We also talk about blue collar jobs sometimes, right? So basically the term blue collar really refers to the lower class of society in terms of income, social, so we're talking social class. So we're talking money, we're talking residence, education, things like that. So those are the people who would be grouped in that. So when a crime is committed by people of that social class, especially if the crime is one of theft, robbery, violence, and so on, assault, it's considered a blue collar crime. Clear?
The different is it is one of these not seriously and one of these seriously crime.
Well, I don't want to say that one is serious and one isn't, because I think that all crimes are serious. So
Okay.
white collar crime, on the other hand, refers to crimes that are more financial in nature, like fraud, embezzlement, insider trading, things like those, right? That concerns money. And so the people who would normally have access and the ability to commit those crimes would be people who would be in the financial system. So maybe people who work in a bank or in the government or something like that. And so they have access to people's money so they can steal it. But nowadays, of course, nearly anybody can get access to that through credit cards and so on, right? So it's kind of, the lines are blurring a little bit, but for the sake of your exam and for the sake of discussion, that is the major distinction between the two. One is more of violent crime and the other is more of financial crime. Now, I believe that they are both serious, violent or financial, because if I saved $1 million and I worked many years to save this $1 million and I sacrificed everything. I didn't go to parties. I didn't get my nails done every weekend, right? And I saved all this money and then someone gets access to my account and wipes it out. I want that person dead.
Okay. Makes sense. I got it.
So it's serious to me. And so if they end up in a court and the judge says, oh, you just need to pay a fine or you only will go to prison for 2 months, I'm probably going to want that judge dead too. Right? So for me, they are serious. For example, nowadays there is a lot of embezzlement going on where people are using different means to trick people into getting their monies, whether they're making phone calls and telling people that they've won the lottery and they should send how much money to them so they can get the money, and or things like those. And I think that it's in that case, you're preying on people who are vulnerable. And if you're preying on people who are vulnerable and people who would have otherwise really needed that money that you're lying to them about so they can send it to you, then I think you're a nasty criminal and you should be locked up. Right? So, but definitely, of course, I understand the pain of physical and violent crime, right? So, and I understand how the helplessness that people may feel if they lose a loved one to a violent situation. So definitely, I also think that people who commit violent crimes should die. I'm a believer in the death penalty. So yeah. So I think they're all serious. I just think that the nature of them are different, but I believe that they should all carry serious consequences. What do you think? That's enough talking from me, right? I've been talking for a long time.
Okay.
So do you now
I know.
understand the difference between blue
Yeah.
collar and white collar crime? Yes?
Yes, I understand it.
Okay. So in your reading, you would have read about white collar crime and financial crime, such as Bernie Madoff and that big Ponzi scheme a few years ago, or maybe you guys are too young to know about that. Or what's the other one? Those oil people. The name just got to me and now I've lost it. Enron, right? And that massive fraud that, that was, again, you guys are too young to know about that. But if you read the articles in the in the lesson this week, it would give you an idea of what those are. So what do you think? Do you think one is worse than the other, Yorka? Do you think blue collar crime is worse than white collar, and should they be punished differently?
I think should be the same as punishment. And
So you think they should carry equal punishment or equal
equal, yes.
consequences? Mm-hmm. Why do you think so?
Because like what you say, they are all serious crime to citizens, and I think it should be happen. It should be not happen in
So it
our
should not
life.
happen.
Not happen in our life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, cool. What do you think, Rosamond? Should one be punished greater than the other, or should there be greater consequences for one versus the other?
I think they should be punished equally because they are both crime, and they will make they will cause instability instability in country.
Instability in the country.
Instability in the country.
Not stay.
Instability in the country.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. Zoe?
I have another idea that I believe that the punishment for violence crimes should be heavier than for financial crimes, because I think that life is the most important thing, and the crimes that then make
Dangerous crimes or crimes that endangers someone's life.
Yeah. Is the
So crimes that endanger a person's life should be punished harsher or more harshly than financial crimes.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want you to say it.
Sorry.
Now I want you to say it. I want you to say what you wanted to say.
Oh yeah. I just think it, and I finished.
Okay. All right. I won't push you too hard, but good job and very good point. Excellent point there. So wonderful, guys. So as always, there is no right or wrong answer, not in this class and not in IELTS. It's really a matter of, can you give your answer and extend and explain? That's it in good English. Okay. So good. I'm glad that we had differing opinions in this session so we can see how that works. Wonderful job. Are there any questions? No
Maybe
questions?
not. Maybe no.
Okay. So here's my next question. Have you ever committed a crime? Now, going back to the lesson you did on petty crime, remember that one, types of crimes? Now, would have you looked at petty crimes? Let me see if I can find an example. So lesson 2, types of crime, right? And it described some that we call micro crime. Okay. Let me share this part of my screen with you guys. So we can look at it and then you can answer that question. I'm going to do this really quickly so we can get through the next segment of our class. You would have listened to or watched a video, I think, for this one, or listened to an audio, but here is a transcript. This should be news. No, yeah, that's right. A new report from a British market research company says there is a wave of microcrime in the country. Researchers from the organization YouGov said they were shocked by their findings. Matthew Smith, a data analyst at YouGov, said, looking around you, you probably wouldn't expect that 3 in every 4 people you see are hiding a criminal past. Now, there are 4 of us in here, or 5. 5? There are 5 of us in here. So at least 3.5 of us, or 3 of us, have committed a crime. Which 3 is it? Okay. Yet, that's exactly what is happening as new research shows that as many as 74% of British people are micro criminals, having done at least one minor crime or microcrime. The most common crime confessed to by the British public is paying someone cash for services, knowing that the person will not pay tax on it. YouGov says that middle-class people were the most likely to commit these crimes. So Zoe, Rosman, and Chamoy were safe. Are most likely to commit these microcrimes. Researchers say 77% of men and 71%, well, maybe we're not off the hook, 71 is still high. Committed microcrimes. About 80% of middle-class people admitted to committing microcrimes, while the figure was closer to 70% for working-class people. The second most commonly committed crime was illegally downloading or streaming TV shows, music, or... Yeah, well, I guess I have committed crimes. Slightly fewer than 30% of people said they have done this. Other crimes included not paying plastic bags in supermarkets, lying about your age to get a better deal, and eating things in a supermarket without paying. I have never done any of these. But this happened to me, lying about your age to get a better deal, but I wasn't the one who told the lie. I'll tell you the story quickly. I was in New York when I was 18 years old, right? And I was spending the summer with family. I was almost 18, not quite 18, 17 in the summer. And we went to a restaurant. It was an all-you-can-eat restaurant. And we went out to church. Went to church at that time. And everybody else were, adults and stuff like that. It was kind of expensive. And so my aunt, I think it was, because I looked like a child when I was 18. Everybody thought I was 12. So they told the people at the restaurant that I was 12, so they wouldn't have to pay for my food. Yeah. So I didn't tell a lie, but I didn't. I was accomplice. I was an accomplice because I didn't say no. How would I have said no? I was in a group of adults. They knew best, right? So having read this, guys, well, before you answer any questions, do you have any questions about anything in this text? Anyone here? Do you have any questions about anything in the text? Yorka, Zoe, Roseman, any questions?
No questions.
Everything is clear? Okay. All right. So since everything is clear about this, I want an answer to this question. Have you ever committed a crime? Now you're going to use the information here as well as other broader information to talk about this. So for example, if I were to use this text, I would probably say, well, I'd like to believe that I've never committed a crime. And in fact, I've never committed any serious crimes. But having read recently about what microcrime is and the percentage of people who have committed this crime, I think I might be guilty of a microcrime. I think in my days at university, I may have downloaded some music without paying for it or a movie of some kind. So I think I probably have, but hopefully I'll never be in a situation where I have to commit any major crime. And I will watch out for micro crimes a little bit more because I don't want to be a criminal. Now let's have one of you guys answer that question. Who would like to answer?
Okay, I want to try.
Go ahead.
When I learned the report about the microcrime, I
Yorker, I think there's now a problem with your audio. I'm not hearing you. We'll give Yorker some time to get that sorted. Roseman, would you like to try?
Yes. I think I may have ever committed a microcrime. It was when I was in the primary school. We were really young, and I'm the group leader. And my and the members in my group should should give me their homework to let me check, and there is one of the members. He didn't finish the homework, and he gave me candy. Give me some candies and let me don't tell the teacher he didn't finish the homework, and I accept it. So I think it's like the bribery and it's like the crime.
Okay. All right. Very good job. I would have taken the candy too. After all, I've already done the work. Okay, cool. Thank you, Rosamond. Just a couple of things there. Your answer was great, by the way. So my corrections is, pardon me, related to grammar and structure. So you're telling that story in the past, and you said you said when I was in primary school. So you should then say, I was the group leader. Okay, so just remember the consistency with the tense. And then when he gave you that candy, you could say, so that I wouldn't tell the teacher. Okay, so he gave me the candy so that I wouldn't tell the teacher. All right, really, really great answer. Thank you so much for that. All right, Zoe, would you like to try to respond to this question as well?
I think that I should be guilty, and I actually committed some crimes. When I was younger, I used to steal. I used to eating. I used to eat things in a supermarket without paying, and at that time, it was often my grandpa and my grandmother by my side, and
I was with my grandma.
Yeah. I was with my grandmother, and she was older and didn't have the awareness of the micro crimes, and
Okay.
later when I grew up, I returned to my parents' side and slowly changed the bad habit.
Okay. All right. Good. So you are a reformed criminal. Joking.
Yeah.
You have changed your ways. You're reformed. Good job. Awesome. All right. So
sorry.
good job there.
Sorry, my internet break off.
It's okay, Yorker. We're glad you're back. Cool. All right. So Zoe, just one thing there. You said you could say when you're starting, you could say, I think that I am guilty, or I think that I have been guilty of committing a microcrime. Yeah. So you could start that sentence like that. I think that I have been guilty of committing a microcrime. Also, before we go to Yorka's response, just wanted to point out something here with the word ever. So if the question has the word ever, like this does, have you ever done something, right? In your response, if your answer is yes, you do not say ever again, okay? So yes must never use ever in the response, okay? But if your answer is no, you can say never. So for example, yes, I have committed a crime. Notice I have completely removed ever. Yes, I have committed a crime. Yes, I have seen the movie. Yes, I have been to London, right? No, I have never committed a crime. No, I have never been to London. No, I have never seen that movie. Are we clear? Positive response, remove the ever. Negative response, change the ever to never. Do we understand?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Any questions about any of that? No? Yorker, would you like to try answering this question again?
Okay. Yes, I admitted a crime.
Commit a crime, not
Admitted
admit.
crime.
You can admit to committing a crime, but we commit the crime.
Okay. When I was a middle school student, I have backed in internet. And
What did you do on the internet?
Bad.
When I was in middle school, I did a bad thing on the internet. Is that what you said?
No, I did a bad. BET.
Bet. So I made a bet.
I made
Not
a
did
bet.
a bet, but made a bet.
Okay, I made a bet, but it's a tiny this tiny amount of money. And I after that I never make the bet.
Since then, I have never.
Never. I think is micro crime.
Okay, since then I have never made a bet, or since then I've never betted on anything, right? So you can say it like that. Since then I have never betted on anything, or maybe online. So maybe during that time online gambling was illegal, but I think nowadays there are legal ones. I think so. So at that time it was illegal, or maybe the website you did it on was not registered or regulated. Maybe that would make it illegal. Okay. Okay, did you win though? Did you win the bet?
Yes.
Okay.
I win 100 yuan.
I won, past tense. I won 100 yuan.
I won 100 yuan.
Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. So you enjoyed the proceeds, your criminal proceeds.
Yes, but I never do it.
I've never done it again. Or
I never done it again. Okay.
Okay. Good. So you're also reformed. Excellent. All right. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for responding to this question. So we can clearly see that, again, when we read these things, when we watch videos, when we hear someone speaking, when you read a text, a book, whatever, or in the lessons, information there can be used to give you perspectives on how you can respond to a question for both speaking and writing. You may get a writing task question that you could use some of the information here, right? About crime and microcrimes, whether or not most of us are, committing crimes, what should the punishment be, things like that. So you can use this, not just for building vocabulary, but for getting perspective that you can then use as a response. Okay, guys? All good? Understood?
Okay.
Yes? Awesome. All right. So we're going to move into the next phase of our class. So Brandon is going to take you through vocabulary review, and then we'll come back and I want us to look at a written task. You won't write, but I'll share one with you and we'll just examine how that person responded to that question. Okay, so over to you, Brandon, and I'll see you in a few, guys.
All right, thank you, Amoy, and welcome again, everyone, to class today. I love the discussion so far. I'm hearing all of these persons who are microcriminals. They've committed macro crimes, and I personally, I am a saint. I've never committed a crime. I'm lying. I may have streamed
Nobody
a
believes you.
movie or downloaded a song. All right. So, but today we're going into vocabulary time, and I know we would have already touched on some certain words and certain vocabulary terms that are relatively new to you, or you don't have as much experience using. But let's break it down to something a little simpler. All right. So I know earlier we were talking about blue collar and white collar crimes. And another way to look at it is I'm going to write down a list of phrases. All right. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So what do these phrases have in common? So the first one, it's stealing money, right? So is that one straightforward? Do we understand that one, stealing money? Yeah, taking money away from someone. But what does misappropriating funds mean? Do you think it means the same thing as stealing money? Yes or no? It's just let me know.
It's
Yeah.
different.
Yes. All right. I'm hearing one person say yes and one person saying it's different, but it's really the same thing, right? And then if we're talking about money laundering, are we also talking about stealing money? We actually are. So when you're thinking of laundering, think of you go to do laundry and it's like rinsing money. So you're stealing money, but you're stealing it in such a way that it's harder for you to get caught, right? So it's going through a certain process. So you're just taking small amounts at a time, but still stealing money. And when we're talking about fraud, we're also talking about stealing money. And when we're talking about embezzlement or scamming, we're also talking about stealing money. So all of these phrases here really say the same thing, right? When we break it down, it's talking about stealing money. So just as how we have so many different ways to say the same thing, and these ways, and even though we could say stealing money as a simple way, there are many more difficult ways or more complex ways to express the same idea. It's a similar case when we're talking about war and we're talking about prison and we're talking about crime. All right? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So these are different ways to say the same thing. Now, when we're talking about crime and the law, there's certain terms that will come up a lot. So let's look at words like testimony, words like witness, guilty or not guilty, admit or confess, all right. Now, I have some words here, and is everyone familiar with all the words here? Testimony, witness, guilty, not guilty, admit or confess, a prison sentence, and victim.
Uh, what's the first words means?
First word, testimony. All right. So what is a testimony? A testimony, it's really a written statement or something that someone says, a spoken statement that really tells the story of something that happened. So for example, I witnessed a crime yesterday. I saw a man run up to a lady and steal her handbag. And so I had to go to the police officers and give my testimony. I had to tell them what happened. So a testimony, it's your recollection of something that happened in the past. All right. So it's you telling someone what you saw happened. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense.
All right, awesome. So let's create a scenario that will allow us to use the vocabulary, right? So we're going to talk about stealing money. All right. And let's find a way to use the word testimony. So I saw a crime yesterday. All right. So I saw a crime yesterday. Someone stole $1 million from the ATM and got caught by the police. When I gave my blank in court, the judge found the criminals guilty. Do you think the word testimony will fit the blank space here?
Yes.
Yes, it would. All right, so when I gave my testimony in court, the judge found the criminals guilty. Okay. Now, if you are able to give a testimony, does that mean that you were a witness? Did you see what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
means
a
that you
crime.
saw what happened. Okay, you saw the crime. All right, so a witness, we know that the person saw a crime. So where could we put the word witness in this paragraph that we have here? What word could we replace?
Saw.
Saw, okay. So would we say I witnessed a crime yesterday or I witnessed a crime yesterday?
Witnessed.
Okay. I witnessed a crime yesterday. All right. So I witnessed a crime yesterday when I gave my testimony. All right. Now, when we said that the judge found the criminals guilty. So did that mean that does that mean that they did the crime? They committed that crime?
He saw he witnessed another get a crime.
He witnessed another crime being committed? I don't think that's it. So in the sentence, it says, when I gave my testimony, so the person who witnessed the crime, they gave their testimony in the court, right? So they were telling the judge what happened, what they saw happened, what they saw happen. And the judge said, okay, I think these two men are guilty then. Because based on what you said, these were the persons that were there and they were the ones who stole the money. All right. So
Yeah.
all right. So when I gave my testimony in court, the judge found the criminals guilty. All right. So what if we said, All right, so one of the criminals confessed. And said, so we could say that one of the criminals confessed and said, I feel guilty for, and in this case, I feel guilty for stealing the money from the ATM. All right. Now, I use a few of these vocabulary terms here, and I have them there because I want for each person to try this for me. So I want you to talk about a time when you witnessed or when you saw a crime. So if someone asks you to talk about a time when you saw a crime, I want us to practice using this formulation. We could start by saying, I witnessed something. So you can talk about what you witnessed and any details you want to give about it. And then I want you to talk about telling someone else about what happened, right? So talk about giving a testimony. And then after that, I want you to use the word confess or guilty. I'm going to list 4 words that you can use any one of those 4 words or 4 phrases. All right. So there, in this question, what I'm practicing, I want you guys to use the vocabulary, the simple vocabulary that we have here, in different ways that allow you to talk about a story, talk about what happened, but at the same time, not be too wrapped up or confused by trying to use more complex phrases. If we're able to express what happened or what we're trying to answer in simple language, then we can always insert more complex language afterwards. Does everyone understand the assignment? It's okay if you don't, just let me know.
Okay.
All right, so you're supposed to talk about a time when you saw a crime, right? And I want to hear the formulations being used. So I want to hear someone say, I witnessed something, right? And then talk about, I gave a testimony. So I told this person what happened. I gave my testimony. And then you can use any one of these 4 words in another sentence, talking about the crime that you saw. All right? So I'm going to give you 1 minute and then we can see who would like to answer first. And the 1 minute starts right now. All right, and that's 1 minute. So who would like to try? Yorker, Rosman, Zoe?
Okay.
All right, so we have Yorker first. So Yorker, tell me about the time when you saw a crime.
I witnessed a huge traffic jam,
Okay,
and I saw a car run a red light, ran a red light,
ran a red light?
and yes, and made a huge crash,
Oh, and made a huge crash. Okay.
and I've I I gave a testimony
Gave a testimony
uh, to the police, and and uh, and the driver confess what he did,
All right.
and
And
he said he felt guilty about the crime.
about a crime. All right. All right. Thank you, Yorker. So we're going to read your response and then we're going to talk about it. So I witnessed a huge traffic jam and I saw a car ran a red light and made a huge crash. And I gave a testimony to the police and the driver confessed what he did. And he said he felt guilty about a crime. All right. So Yorker, you have all the information there, but there are a few things that we're going to highlight. All right. So we use the vocabulary. So we talked about something that we witnessed, right? Talked about something
Okay.
that we witnessed. We spoke about giving a testimony, and we talked about the person confessing to something and saying that, hey, I feel guilty about what I did. Okay, so very good job in terms of including the vocabulary. But let's look at how we use them. So I witnessed a huge traffic jam and I saw a car. Let's look at this word. Would it be ran a red light?
Uh,
You saw the car when it was doing something. So I saw a car run a red light or running through a red light. All right. So I witnessed a huge traffic jam and I saw a car run through, okay, or run a red light, run a red light. All right. So Yorker, one of the things is let's try not to use and too much, right? So think of when you're giving a response, it's similar to when you're writing. You don't always have to use and to continue. So I witnessed a huge traffic jam and I saw a car run a red light. That's one idea. And what else happened? So the next thing that we saw is that there was a huge crash, right? So there was a huge crash. So the next part, so we've already spoken about the huge traffic jam. We saw the car running the red lights and it made a huge crash. Now, the next thing that we went to is we're talking about giving a testimony to the police, right? And then the driver confessed what he did. So what you could do instead of saying and, we could use this formulation. When I gave my testimony to the police, the driver confessed that or confessed to what he did and said he felt guilty about committing a crime. So when we use it this way, we are looking for the highlights, I'm sorry. Okay, so when we put it this way, we are cutting out the use of the word and, right? And we're also forming the sentence in such a way that we cover all the ideas. So when I did this, the driver did that. So when I did this, someone else did that. So when I gave my testimony to the police, the driver confessed to committing the crime, for example. And that can be used in pretty much any other setting as well. So we could say, when I went to the garbage truck, the garbage man collected my trash, right? When I went to the ice cream shop, I saw my favorite flavor ice cream in the display section. So when this happened, that happened. Does everyone understand? Yorko, Zoe, Roseman?
Yes, I understand.
All right. So,
Yes.
okay, awesome. So whenever we're giving a response, yes, we're using vocabulary and we're speaking, but we can always think about how we're forming sentences. So we don't always have to give one long sentence as our answer, whether we're speaking it or writing it. So we can always break it down into different parts and tell a story. So I witnessed a huge traffic jam and I saw a car run a red light. There was a huge crash. When I gave my testimony to the police, the driver confessed to what he did and said he felt guilty about committing a crime. All right. So I think we only have enough time for one more response. So who else would like to give a response? Any volunteers?
Oh, I can try.
All right, give me 1 second. Let me make some space for your answer.
Yeah. I once witnessed a middle-aged man molesting a girl on the bus. When the incident was subsequently exposed, I gave my testimony to prove that I have witnessed the whole process, and in that moment, I was loudly exposing and uh, and uh, and rebecking him.
Rebec, or is this the word?
Oh yeah.
Okay, rebuking.
Oh yeah. And he later confessed his guilt. Confessed to what he did, and said he felt guilty about this. He felt guilty about this.
Felt
Oh,
guilty
thank you.
about this. Okay. All right. So I once witnessed a middle-aged man molesting a girl on the bus. When the incident was subsequently exposed, I gave my testimony to prove that I witnessed the whole process, and in that moment, I was loudly exposing and rebuking him, and he later confessed to what he did and said he felt guilty about this. All right. In terms of the language, very good use of words. I see you're inserting other words into the formulation. Very good. So you said, I once witnessed. So it happened once before. It's only one time that it happened. And you spoke about what you witnessed, right? Now, at the beginning part, I noted that you took the notes from when we're going through Yorko's example, and we broke it down a little bit. So you did that for the first sentence, which was very good. Then you spoke about when the incident was subsequently exposed. So you're talking about after the incident was exposed. I gave my testimony to prove that I witnessed the whole process. All right. So what I would suggest or recommend is that after that section there, we would take another break. So I witnessed the whole process. We'll put a full stop there. Right? Then we would start the next one saying, in that moment, I was loudly exposing and rebuking him. And he later confessed to what he did and said he felt guilty about this. All right. So let's look at, oh no, I think it cuts off the top part of the response. All right. So let's see how it reads now. I once witnessed a middle-aged man molesting a girl on the bus. When the incident was subsequently exposed, very good use of the word subsequently, I gave my testimony to prove that I witnessed the whole process. So after it was exposed, you were saying that, hey, I saw it too. Was that the case, Zoe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So we would cut down the idea. We would cut down, instead of using the word and drawing out the sentence and just adding more things, let's keep it shorter and put it in a more, not fluent, but a more structured way. All right. The whole process, full stop. In that moment, I was loudly exposing and rebuking him, and he later confessed to what he did. We could actually put another full stop there. He confessed to what he did. He said that he felt guilty about this or about committing the crime. He said that he felt guilty about committing the crime. All right. So a good response. So good responses overall, but what I want you guys to focus on is definitely, how do I structure my response? So even though when we're in the IELTS exam, it's not all about writing, right? Because there is the speaking task that you have to consider. I want you to think about, how do I structure my answer? Do I just throw all the information at the examiner and they can say, okay, he answered the question, so all is well? Or how do we structure the answer so that when we actually give that answer, it's done in such a way that the examiner can be like, okay, so the person, he told us what he saw, he told us who did it, he told us about the incident, and he told us about how the person felt afterwards. So whenever we're able to structure our responses, doesn't matter if we're writing or speaking, it helps us with our fluency. It also helps us to keep track of our grammar, if we're keeping the right tense, if we're following the right grammar rules. And it also gives us more time to think about what vocabulary we would like to put into an answer or in a sentence. All right, are there any questions?
No, no question.
No questions? All right. So how about Zoe and Roseman? Any questions from you guys?
No questions.
No questions? All right, so good stuff. So what I want to see for the rest of the class, so I know that there's another segment of the class and we'll be going through a writing task. I want you to think about the structure. How do you structure your responses? What's the structure of a paragraph? Is it the same structure that I can use if I'm saying a response? So I want you to think about that and think about how we can use simple vocabulary. Focus on the simple vocabulary, and then afterwards, if we would like to, and if we've mastered using complex vocabulary, we can insert it into our answers. All right, so Amoy, if you're ready, I'm handing back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Brandon.
All right.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for participating in the vocabulary review. Are we ready to move on to our next segment? Are we? Yes, no, maybe? Hmm?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure that we are not sleeping, right? I want to know that we're all awake before moving on. So cool. Now, because we don't have a lot of time, I have two that I wanted to look at, but I think, let's see. There are two options. All right, let's look at the second one. The two questions I had, one was to deal with advancement in technology and how the impact that that has had on crime and crime reduction. That's option one. The second one was to talk about whether or not crime can be prevented. Okay, those are my two options. Which one of those essays do you want to look at? One or two?
Two.
Technology and crime? Two? Okay, all right. Everybody agrees? Two? All right, I'm going to take Yorka's response
Yes.
for the response to the class. Okay. So I'm sharing my screen. It should be showing up in a sec. So this was a question. Crime is a big problem in the world. Many believe that nothing can be done to prevent it. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Give your opinion. And this essay we're going to look at achieved a band 9 score. Okay, so we're going to look at different aspects of it. So just as a reminder, what you are scored on for IELTS. You're scored on your task response. Some may call it task achievement, right? So you must achieve the task. Okay. You are also scored on coherence and cohesion. Coherence and cohesion. You are scored on lexical resource. You are scored on grammatical range and accuracy. Okay. So these are the things that you are scored on for IELTS writing. All right. So you must achieve the task, which means you must answer what the question asks. And in this case, what is the task? What is the task in this question, guys? The task is right here.
To what extent do you agree or disagree?
To what extent do you agree or disagree? Give your opinion. Those are the tasks, right? So you must tell us if you agree or disagree, and if in either case, to what extent. Measure your level of agreement, okay? And give us your opinion. Why? Why do you feel that way about it? Why do you think that about it? That's the task. What we have here is background information to give us an idea of what the topic is. So what is the topic?
Crime is a big, okay.
The topic is crime prevention. Crime is a big problem in the world. That's just a general statement. Many believe that nothing can be done to prevent it. To what extent do you agree? To what extent do you agree with what? To what extent do you agree that nothing can be done to prevent it? So that's the topic, crime prevention. So you now need to talk about whether or not anything can be done to prevent crime. So do you agree that we can prevent crime? Yes, you agree. No, you don't agree. Yes, you. To what extent? So that's the topic. Do we understand? Are we clear?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go see if this person has achieved the task, if they're coherent and cohesive, if they have used good vocabulary and appropriate vocabulary, and have they been accurate with their grammar, okay? So the first part says crime is unquestionably one of the most prevailing and worrying aspects in any society, and its prevention should be taken seriously. Notice, they have mentioned that it's a big problem, and they've now also dealt with its prevention. Okay, so this is basically highlighting the question and paraphrasing, which is one of the first things you want to do. Okay, crime prevention, again, this is the topic, can be executed in various ways. Now they're going to tell us their opinion. This is their opinion. Crime prevention can be executed in various ways. Firstly, through a sustained, honest presence in the community, and secondly, through international cooperation. So this sentence tells us this is their opinion, but it also tells us that they're going to be discussing two issues. The first, that it can be executed in various ways, right? That's their whole point. And what are those two ways? Sustained, honest presence in the community and international cooperation. Those are the things we're going to be reading about. Are we clear? Understood? Let's continue. A local presence by incorruptible law enforcement authorities may be costly. However, the long-term investment would pay dividends in the future. A safer region would encourage trade, investment, and set an invaluable example for younger generations. For example, crime has dramatically been reduced in the favelas around Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. This was achieved largely through the government committing large funds of money to stationing police headquarters in and around the slums. These financial expenditures greatly benefited the community. Now here, do we see a link between these two paragraphs and the first point that was mentioned here? Yes or no? Yes or no? Is there a connection? Is this paragraph or these two paragraphs, are they in relation to the first point this person said they would talk about? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, it is, right? They said they would talk about sustained, honest presence in the community. And what do we have here? Talking about investing in putting more police officers in communities. And they gave a specific example of this taking place and how it actually helped to reduce crime in a particular community in Brazil. Got it? Any questions so far?
Got it.
Okay. All right. Next. Secondly, due to the large-scale severity and the global impact that crime has in some areas of the world, global cooperation is critical. Operating in a different way would incur significant financial losses and render any expenditure futile. For example, Somalian pirates in Africa reigned terror amongst many ocean transport companies in the area. Only through large-scale international cooperation was policing the area possible. Therefore, crime reduction can be attributed to a joint effort between countries. Do we also see that point 2, which was international cooperation? Do we see that coming forth in his second point?
Yes.
Yes, we do. All right, now let's look at the conclusion. To conclude, illegal activities are costly and dangerous fact in the present, are a costly and dangerous fact in the present global economy. However, through large-scale government investment, prevention is an attainable goal. Also, spreading the expense through international cooperation, the resources invested can be significantly more effective in reducing criminals' effectiveness abroad. In this conclusion, do we see the theme or the topic being highlighted again? Illegal activities, that's crime, right? It's a major problem because it presents a danger to the global economy. Major problem. That's what they mentioned in the question, right? Now, this person now tells us what? Summarizes his 2 points. He says it can be prevented. How? We need to have government intervention, right? And we also need international cooperation. And that's how we will reduce it. Now, were there any new points raised in the conclusion?
No.
No new points raised in the conclusion, because we're not supposed to have any new points raised in the conclusion. Your conclusion is essentially a summary of what you wrote here. But also, one easy way to do it is to paraphrase your introduction. If you paraphrase your introduction for your conclusion, you would have it written one that is acceptable. Okay, so if you're having trouble with that, just remember that. But it means then that you must have a good introduction. But what I really wanted us to focus on, guys, is if you can look at these things here, the examples. He said, for example, crime has dramatically been reduced in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And they talked about policing headquarters in and around the slums. Now, this sounds to me like they read an article or saw it on TV or something, right? This is naturally something that they would have read. They would have gotten this information from an article, from a video, or a blog or something of the sort, but they have used it and incorporated it into their response. So can you do the same with what you have read, watched, and listened to? Yes, you can. And you want to apply them like that, as long as it is appropriate, by the way. Okay? The same. For example, Somalian pirates in Africa have rained terror against many ocean transport companies in the area. Again, this sounds like something they knowledge of something they've heard or read before coming into the exam and have used it in their response. Because when you are doing the writing task and it comes to writing the example, remember this is academic. And academic examples should typically come from something that you have read. Now, notice nobody here said, I read wherever. When you're speaking, you can say that. But in your writing, you don't need to say where you got the information from. You just need to say the information. Now, does this have to be true? No, but it should sound true. In other words, it should sound good. It should sound academic, like this one does. So think of anything that you have read or worked on this week. How could you use that information to respond to questions? So that's one. Additionally, look at the vocabulary that this person has used. The vocabulary is quite appropriate for a topic such as this. And they've used a lot of paraphrasing, right? Which is also a skill that you must have when you are doing the IELTS exam, especially for the writing and the speaking task. Okay? Any questions? What do you think of the essay? And do you have any questions? Guys? If you don't tell me anything, I'm going to ask you things. Any questions about this essay? Is there any words, phrases, ideas there that you want to ask about? No? Sounds like a no? Okay. I'm not going to push any further. So let me then ask this question. Do you believe that crime can be prevented? Do you believe that it is possible to prevent crime? Let's ask it that way. Do you believe it is possible to prevent crime? Or let me get it differently, sorry. To what extent? To what extent do you believe crime prevention is possible? I'm going to put this in your country. Let's narrow this down a little bit for your sake. Okay? So this is the question I want you guys to answer. So this is one I want you to look at. To what extent do you believe crime prevention is possible in your country? Okay? Let's hear your response. Roseman?
I don't agree. Crime prevention is possible in my country.
Now you started with I don't agree, but my question didn't ask you if you agreed or not. It asked to what extent do you believe? Yeah. So you can say, I don't think, I don't believe, I'm convinced, I'm not persuaded, I seriously doubt. That phrases like those. Let's try that again.
I don't think crime prevention is possible in my country.
Why not?
Because I think crime prevention is possible in my country because if the government sets the proper laws to prevent the crime, it will work.
Okay. What are some of those things you think government needs to do?
And improve people's educational level, and the people want to commit crime, they will do the right things.
Okay. So in other words, it can be prevented if the government pursues more educational programs. So if you have more people being educated, then they would be less inclined to commit crimes, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you. Zoe?
In my opinion, to a large extent, I don't believe that crime prevention is possible in my country. On one hand, as the Chinese saying goes, human nature is inherently evil. On the other hand, many crimes occurs in my country precisely because of the polarization of society,
Polarization.
Polarization of society, which leads many people to rob others of their property, or take or commit crimes to hurt
Okay.
hurt to hurt others' life.
Okay. Good. All right. Thank you. Good job. Good job. And I like the vocabulary that you were using. So very nicely done. Yorker?
I don't believe the crime prevention is possible in my country. Because the people are greedy to money or powers and those things.
They're greedy for money and power. Mhm.
And like I know a star. She names Fan Bingbing. She
Her name
even
is?
though her name is Fan Bingbing, even though she has a lot of money, she still make tax evasion.
Oh, so she still committed tax fraud,
committed
tax of. Mm-hmm.
and
So yeah, go on.
and even if make the jail jail.
Mm-hmm. So she goes to jail.
No, I want to say another point.
Oh, okay. Okay. So if we
Even if
do what
the
with
jail,
jails, like have more jails?
even have more jails, like the same as design. This was designed the same as Norway.
Mm-hmm.
They still the prisoner still make the admit the crime.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So even with comfortable conditions in prison, criminals will still want to commit crimes. Okay. All right, good. Very well. Now, I like that, and I like that you included information from the readings this week. But you'd have to tell us more about what you mean about the prisons in Norway, because if you just say, even if the prisons were like those in Norway, they would still commit crime. If someone doesn't know what the prisons in Norway are like, they're going to be confused. Then what about the prisons in Norway? Right? So you'd have to give us another sentence at least to bring everybody in, to bring your audience in on what happens in the prisons in Norway. Okay?
Okay.
All right, but good job. Thank you. All right, guys. Are there any questions?
No question.
No? Okay,
No
so we're all clear?
questions.
Cool. How do we feel about this topic? Speaking and for writing and even listening and reading, how do we feel about this topic? Do we feel now that we have sufficient vocabulary to take us through any part of the exam if this topic should come up? Crime, law, things like that. How comfortable are you?
I think the words a little bit difficult.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
the words are a little technical, but you don't need to know all of them, right? Words you already know are fine. You can use, so what I would suggest here is to look again through the articles and the videos from this week's lesson and see which ones keep coming up, which ones you keep seeing repeated, right? And those are the ones you want to make sure you remember so that you can also use them. Okay?
Okay. could you post the 2 articles on WeChat?
Okay. Do you mean
Okay,
the 2
thanks.
essays that I shared today?
Is 2,
Yeah.
you say 2 options about the articles. Okay,
Okay. Okay, no problem. They are essays
thanks.
that were written by students, I believe. So yes, I can share them.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Anybody else?
No, no questions.
No questions? Okay. All right. Cool. Well, in that case, thank you all so much for coming to this week's class. Good job. Great participation. And I trust that it was helpful and it will build some confidence for you when you are, if you are facing any questions along this topic. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and I'll see you next week.
Okay, see you next week.
Thank
Bye,
you. See you
guys.
next week.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.